How official. All right, we are now recording. So anything I said before can't be used against me. Now it can. So anyway, so if you have questions or anything of me, please ask right away. Don't hesitate, and I'll get an answer to you as quickly as possible. Some of the things that we go over, I'm I'm a paramedic. Also was a paramedic and battalion chief out in what we call the county, Harrison County, for a while. Ran the squad truck out there. That's where I got most of my paramedic experience was on a fire truck. So I'll try not to trash talk any ambulance services. No, I'm kidding. I love every ambulance service out there. Everybody out there on an ambulance is fantastic, and I would never have a bad word to say about it. Most of the time, what I will do though is I will point out my mistakes, things that I have made or mistakes that I have made, because I feel like that's the best way to learn. And I definitely want to make sure that you guys feel just as comfortable. If you make a mistake at a clinical, or if you've made a mistake as an EMT, don't be afraid to bring it up. That's the best time to learn. That's when we learn. That's when we learn from our mistakes, or hopefully you're learning from your mistakes. And that's how we get things cleared up. Because sometimes, you learn the book way, which is, by the way, what we will be learning in here. That way you get out there, you pass the National Registry, and then you hopefully find you a position that'll carry you on from there. And then you learn the truck way. Once you pass National Registry and everything else, then you can run the truck way, learn the truck way. So we definitely want to make sure that we're learning at National Registry while we're here, which is we have some very good resources here, and we'll be following that. Some other things that I like for students to take a look at. There's some people feel differently about it. Some people like it, some people don't, is a Quizlet. And mostly, and this is what I say, Quizlet's great. Just make sure that when you look at Quizlet, you're not just downloading it and flipping through it and trusting those answers are correct. Go through these answers and make sure that they're definitely correct. Preferably, I would say build your own Quizlet. It's great for studying. It's great for study cards. However, I will say this about Quizlet. It is also used as a cheating tool, and I've seen it used as a cheating tool on several occasions. I can tell you this: if you cheat during this course, you will be caught. And reason being is because when you take a test, it records everything. And so just know that if you think you're going to be slick or anything like that, you better be slick about it. And you're only cheating yourself. If you're having problems, I would say don't cheat. Ask questions. Because you're only going to cheat yourself. Because you definitely ain't going to cheat whenever you get into that room to take your National Registry test. That ain't going to happen. Every one of you took EMT. You know what I'm talking about. So I don't think I have to pounce on that too hard. Rob, you got anything you want to add to that? The compromise?
No, that was pretty good. So yeah, just be aware that, obviously we can't see exactly what website you go to, but every time you minimize or click off of the screen during a test, we know, and it keeps a counter down to the millisecond as to how long you're off the test, how often you go back to the test. Every single time you do it, we can see that. And so we'll know. Right now, we have a zero tolerance policy for it. If we catch it, it usually is going to end up in removal from the class. So please don't do it. That's not the way you want to end this class. But other than that, utilize Discord. You guys are all in the AEMT room so that you can talk to each other, but we also have the community portion of it where you're in there with other students, other alumni. Like Chase said, if you're not sure, ask questions. You're not the only one that's probably struggling with that material, and somebody may have a better way of explaining it than what we do. So, use that tool. That's why it's there. And you may have the answer to somebody else's question. So just stay in there, stay active, and ultimately just enjoy learning the class. You guys wouldn't be in here if you didn't want to progress your career. So I have high hopes for this group.
All right. So as far as, do we have anything else that y'all wanted to cover before we actually jump into this? Have y'all got to look around Navigate? You have any questions about Navigate? I'm still relatively new to it. I'm learning it as well. In some aspects, I went through and watched the videos and what have you. The support section in Navigate is fantastic. It's great. It will show you how to fix something if you break it, or it'll just tell you to make sure you get a hold of technical support. That's the biggest thing, is that, you know, if you're coming to me about technical support questions on Navigate, I'm probably going to have to refer you to either the support or to the support number, or to Rob or Krista, because they know a lot more about it than I do. I'm still learning it quite a bit. I try to keep up with it as much as possible. I'm in it just about every day just to look at something or make adjustments. And I constantly make adjustments to the material, and I will try to add things in there, like I said, as we go. So we'll do that. I like to try and keep these classes interesting. So most of the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions throughout the course, or throughout our lecture. I do utilize the lecture material. I'll share the screen every time, unless I feel the need to do a face-to-face. And then I have a little whiteboard here and everything else, or I can do the whiteboard on the pen, on my iPad here. But for the most part, I like to do live whiteboards. I don't know why. It's easier for me to explain, sitting here looking at the camera and looking at a whiteboard than drawing on an iPad. Plus that, and I got an old school iPad, so it's not the best one. Like right now, I try to keep my book open and everything, so that don't be afraid to, if you're following along in your book and you see something that needs to be brought up, bring it up to me. I'll have my book on the same one. I can get on the same page and we can look at it together. And once I get the live book, it'll be a lot easier for me to do that. All right. All right, let's get started. First, I'd like to get a little bit of introduction for yourself. Just tell me who you are, where you're from, and if you work for an ambulance service, or if you want to, if there's anything you want to share about what you do currently, that'd be great. All right. Who wants to go first? Let's go. Yeah. Go ahead, Katie. Oh, your microphone's off.
I'm Katie. I work for Med Express in Opelousas, Louisiana. I've been an EMT for about a year and a half.
Okay. All right. Matthew Wade.
My name's Matthew Wade. I finished EMT. I actually took National Registry on my 30th, just passed it, and then jumped in this class. I just worked for AAA for a little while, and I actually work for ASAP EMS out of Loosedale right now.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to throw in that Matt Wade is one of our previous ARES graduates. He was actually in our very first EMT program.
Okay.
He just got hit with a lot of other trainings, and it really pushed his ability to take the registry back a long, long time. Yet he still managed to get through that test. So good job, man.
Does Corey still work out there at ASAP or in Loosedale?
I don't know of a Corey.
I think he was a training guy for a while. He may be on the helicopter now. I'm not sure.
Probably so.
He was in.
What's his last name?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. Don't give me the line. He was in my paramedic class. So yeah,
I think if I'm not mistaken, there was a Corey that was a preceptor for Travis Green, one of our previous students that was doing his ride alongs out there.
Okay, might have been. All right, Rob. Let's hear yours, since you're the next one on my list.
All right, my name's Rob. I wear a lot of hats. So obviously I own the company, but I didn't start this until after my most recent deployment. been an EMT since 2006. Went all the way through paramedic school, and then it got squashed by COVID. So it sounds like I'm just getting up to it, and really it is. I just kind of sat on it for a long time. I stayed in EMT, was a flight medic in the Air Force for a long time, just never went and got the civilian equivalency of the training. Currently a deputy fire chief at the Air Force, and I've been a firefighter in general since 2006 as well. That's how I got to know Chase and a few other of our instructors. We've been at it for a while. But other than that, I just got 2 kids. I'm actually at the ball field watching my son play Little League Baseball while I'm talking to y'all. So that's pretty much it for me. I'll be in touch with you guys a lot throughout the course. If you need anything, obviously let me know. And good luck.
Great, Rob. Appreciate it. All right. Leanne.
Hey y'all, I'm Leanne from Mississippi. Been an EMT since 2006. I've got 2 little crazy munchkins running around the house now. So if you hear them, I'm sorry. That's about it.
Okay. All right. Michael Allen. Sorry, I know a Michael Aaron, but Michael Allen, go ahead. Floor's yours.
Well, I went through ARES EMT, and I got my EMT a while back, and I work in Olive Branch, but this is like my 4th career, so it's fantastic, and I'm just it's just great, right?
I almost feel like I could hear the eye twitch.
I don't want to be too sarcastic, but I found that EMS is better than being a math teacher, and it almost compares to being a sapper in the Army. But I'm just glad to be here.
So I want to say one thing to you guys. When you go to do your skills, do not actually sternum rub the other students, please.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Why not?
I gotta throw that out there because somebody somewhere has done it, and I will just leave it at that.
No, you should explain that.
But why not?
Has it happened to you yet? It doesn't feel good. And yeah, so one of your students takes his training very seriously. And I guess, in the military, we're the ones that are like, hey, I bet you can't take this NPA or NG tube or whatever. So we're used to just doing it. He did it to thankfully another Army guy. So I thought I was going to see a fight. I was ready for it because he came up pretty quick.
That was awesome.
All right. Genevieve.
I am Genevieve Church. Everybody at work calls me Church. So that's basically my name because I work a lot. So I just go by Church. And I have been an EMT for 3 years, and I work at AMED in Gretna, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans.
Okay. All right. Great. Tijuana, is that how you say that? If I butcher your name, please let me know.
Tia Conroy.
Okay.
I've been an EMT for 7 years now, and I work as Acadian.
Okay. All right. Now, is that a Acadian in Louisiana or?
Louisiana, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Sarah Smith.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I've been an EMT for 3 years. I work for AAA out of Hattiesburg. And sorry, I'm really sick right now.
That's okay. All right. I'll try not to call on you too much so you don't have to use too much of your voice just yet. And last but certainly not least, Donald D'Antonio.
Hey, I'm Donnie.
And
I work for Harrison County Fire Rescue on the Gulf Coast. I know Chase for about, I don't know, 20 years, it seems like. More like 10, probably. Chase was my battalion chief at Harrison. He was also my chief at the airport. He's a great instructor. I'm just trying to get extra points. But yeah, I've been doing it for about going on 9 years in the fire service, and I was one of Rob's first EMT classes. So.
Okay. All right. All right. I think that's about it. Did I miss anybody? All right.
You can't do this without getting Ty.
Oh, how did I miss Ty? Ty.
Quiet and shy and muted.
You didn't have to do that to me, Rob. My name's Ty Walker. I've been an EMT since 2008. I worked for AAA for a few years and kind of got out of working for the ambulance service. And now I'm back part-time with AMR, and here to learn all I can learn and be the best I can be.
You down, you're at AMR Gulf Coast? I mean, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm at AMR on South Mississippi.
Who's the new ops chief?
Billy Ship. He's from Baldwin County EMS. He's a lifeguard employee, which I think that's going to be the new chain of command, as they're going to start infiltrating lifeguard people into the system.
Infiltrating.
Now, do you feel like that's just a Gulf Coast thing, or you think that's going to be AMR?
No. It's all over. See, Global Medical Response they owned Lifeguard first, then they bought AMR. And Chris Cirillo was replaced by a lifeguard employee, which was he was replaced by a lifeguard employee, and the operations manager for the Gulf Coast was also replaced by a lifeguard employee. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it looks like it's going to be a shift towards that direction. See, lifeguard AMR and Mobile, they lost the contract and lifeguard picked it up. So we'll see.
Well, that's interesting. The same, especially if they're owned by the same corporation, but they're not. I don't know what the term is. They didn't combine.
They don't rebrand. No, they're not. They're not interested in rebranding. But the regional manager, which is Dwayne Tulos, he wears a lifeguard uniform and he also drives a lifeguard vehicle. But of course, our new operations manager, he wears an AMR uniform. But we'll see.
The way things are going, we're all going to be working for the same ambulance company, no matter where we are, in not too long.
Yeah.
Not this guy.
Well, let me rephrase that: working for the same ambulance company or being a firefighter.
Well, I mean, you got some people that go to paramedic school to be paramedics, and you got some people that go to paramedic school to ride on fire trucks.
That's right. Well, I didn't ride on a fire truck. I had a pickup, but yeah, I get it. No, so this is a very small community, as all of you know. So a lot of us do know each other, and at some point in time, you may run into somebody from a past class, past life, or what have you, while you're out there. It's a very small community, so policies travel fast, word travels fast, everything travels fast. Very important to know that, because what you say wherever you're at, if you're on a clinical or if you're in this classroom, it can come back. So I can definitely attest to that. Things that I've set out on scene or what have you, coming back, finding out things or what have you. And sometimes it's within a few minutes. I've had phone calls within a few minutes of leaving a scene, be like, hey, you can't say that, stuff like that or what have you. So trust me, it's a very small community, especially here in Mississippi and the Louisiana area. Everybody kind of knows everybody, which ain't a bad thing. If you're networking, if you have good rapport, it ain't a bad thing at all. You can actually make a lot of good moves with getting to meet people. Which kind of brings me to the using the Discord, the emails, having the study sessions in there. If you want to have a if you want to have a study session using Zoom on your own or what have you, we can figure out something with that. And maybe y'all can get together, have a small group or something like that. Maybe we can figure something out. It works out very well. Study sessions do. I know everybody being as far apart as they are and work schedules, things like that, life schedules, that a lot of times it's hard to actually get together if you're not in a live classroom and have study sessions. But this is a new age and we can figure out new ways to do so. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump in today. We've got chapters 1 and 2 that we're going to cover. First one being chapter 1, EMS systems. Like I said earlier, I do utilize the lectures. Can everybody see the cover screen, the lecture? Is it sharing correctly?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
I know if one person sees it, most everybody can see it. And we will jump off into it pretty easy. If you read through it, the first two chapters are going to be a little slow because it's the beginning, and it's almost the same. It's almost the same throughout every one of them. Hold on. All right. And I'll try to give everybody breaks and what have you every now and then as well, so that we don't wind up driving ourselves insane.
Hey, Chase, I'm going to go ahead and bow out and let you teach your class. I just wanted to come in and make sure everything got off without an issue. I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great night.
All right. All right. So we will start. If you read through, then you'll kind of have you'll kind of be able to see what we're going to go over tonight. It's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot to it. The quiz is relatively easy, so I shouldn't have any issues there. This is some of the standard competencies that we'll be going over. All right, some of the public health uses simple knowledge of principles and role of EMS during public health emergencies. All of you saw something to do with public health this past year. If you didn't, I don't know what rock you were under, but most definitely it plays a vital role, public health does, in our learning and research and education for EMS, not just in the field. All right, as you all know, that you start off EMR, then you EMT, then advanced EMT, a little bit more involved in there, and then paramedic from there. So we'll go over the main differences between EMT, AMT, and paramedic. We have anybody that came up through the whole system as an EMR, then EMT, and then going on to AMT?
I have. I got my EMR back in 04.
Okay. All right. Oops. So as you can see there, EMRs, first medically trained professional to arrive at the scene. So a lot of, well, now a lot of your EMTs are, or a lot of your fire departments and what have you, and all of your ambulances. I know locally around here, it's a EMT requirement at the minimal level. And then there are some departments out there that still have an EMR requirement or what have you. As well, I mean, even police departments are starting to train their people in EMR, EMT, and paramedic. And a lot of times, there's a lot of EMR, EMT, and paramedics that swap over to the police department and end up as SWAT medics and things like that. Because from what I was told, is that it's easier to train a AMT, EMT, or paramedic to be a cop than it is a cop to be, the other way around. So I don't know what that says about cops. They're great people. So I don't know what that guy was trying to infer. EMTs have training in basic life support. Their AED, or the automated external defibrillator, airway adjuncts, and assistance with certain medications. Airway adjuncts can be all the way up. I think they used to teach back when I started, they taught the LM8 taught it. Doesn't mean that your agency does it, but they used to teach the supraglottic airways and things like that in EMTs, where you got your first start with that. All right, as an AMT, you start to get a little more into it. You take what you've learned before, and then now we're going to throw in there IV therapy and administration of certain emergency medications, certain types of advanced airway management. So it kind of builds as it goes. And then you have paramedics that can do ET tubes or endotracheal intubation. They can do emergency pharmacology, depending on what your jurisdiction gives you, how many drugs or what type of drugs that you can get into, or if you can RSI a patient or rapid sequence intubation. If you can do that in your jurisdiction, that first off, thumbs up. Then cardiac monitoring and other advanced assessment and treatment skills. Now, one thing that I always try to teach is that I'm a very big proponent in knowing your next level up. You need to know what the guy above you does, what your partner does, or the guy above you, the next guy in line, or what have you. At least at a minimum, know what they do. It helps out when you're out there on scene. It's gonna help you kind of in line with them, and it's gonna help you learn a lot more either. Don't be afraid to, as you're reading through your AMT material, if you see something a little more advanced that may help explain a little further into some of that pathophysiology or some of those processes, it may help to look at a little more ALS to kind of understand that entire process and understand at what your level, why you're doing it. If you understand the why, why you do things, it makes it a lot easier to learn the process, or to learn what you do. Speaking of, in that email that I sent, you will see the skill sheets. Those skill sheets are very important. In the email, it tells you, even if you may not understand it just yet, read them. It is a process. That psychomotor evaluation is a process, and it's very important to understand that process and to go by the book. Most importantly, right now, there's so many of them. Right now, I kind of want you to focus on the trauma and medical patient assessments. Reason being is because when you start learning the flow of it and you start going through what I call the process of it, then you'll get to where you can never miss. You won't miss. And then as we go, I'll talk about for your psychomotor evaluation, if they let you set up your bag, how you can set up your bag or your table or what have you to go along with your skill sheets. You can actually set up your bag, and you can almost make it line out like your skill sheets would look. And then from there, you can't miss. I mean, it's great. So we'll go over that as we go. And it's very important too, since we don't have a live class and I can't throw a dummy down in front of you or what have you, Whenever we do patient assessments and I throw a patient to you, I'm going to expect to hear a lot of those points get nailed on that skill sheet. That way I know you understand the process. That's what's gonna pass not just that psychomotor evaluation, but it's also gonna help you. It's gonna help you pass that national registry, because a lot of the national registry is not just question answer. A lot of it is scenario based. So you want to make sure that you know how to talk your way or think your way through a scenario efficiently, or be as proficient as possible through a scenario. All right, so training and licensure requirements, it varies. It varies by each state. Sorry, I'm still trying to adjust my screen here. It does vary by each state requirements, or exceeds the guidelines recommended in the current National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or the NHTSA EMS education standards. So want to make sure that you know your local area and how that works as well. Most importantly, if you're taking national registry, get online and look, and it tells you exactly what to expect as far as their process. The textbook that you have with you, it includes additional information that'll help you understand and apply the material through this course as well. There's, as you move through, there's going to be tips all through the book on how to better utilize your textbook. All right, as it says there, some patients are in life-threatening situations, which is going to get you your thinking, your critical thinking skills, where it's important there, acute thinking, so that you can think on your toes, you can think quickly. If you learn these items that we go through like a process, you'll do it every time the same way, and you can't mess it up. Even when I get on scene, I have a process that I hit. All right, from the way it goes, or from the way I go. So some of the subjects discussed will include scene size up. We'll talk about scene size ups, how it works as a windshield size up, meaning what you see while you're sitting in the ambulance. And we'll move on to a scene size up of the scene itself. Once you step out of the ambulance, what you see, and then, as you walk up to your patient, you'll be describing your scene. You want to paint a picture. We may dabble a little bit into communications, as far as radio communications, kind of help everybody out. All right, then we'll move into patient assessments. When we talk about patient assessments, that's where I talk about that process. So look at those skill sheets, and like I said, even though you should understand it right now, you're all EMTs. There's not going to be a lot of changes, but just make sure you understand the process. Or some of us need to knock the rust off or the dust off a little bit. It's really good to get back into it. All right, we'll talk about the treatments and some of the standard protocols. We'll talk about patient packaging and EMS as a career. All right, to start, I'm guessing since everybody's in here, then everybody's got a high school diploma or equivalent, proof of immunization against certain communicable diseases, and valid driver's license. I'm guessing everybody in here's got that. Background check and drug screenings. This is some of the stuff that's also required for the course. So if you are having any type of trouble with that, please let me know so I can forward it along so we can mitigate it as soon as possible. Depending on what jobs you go to, they may. Yeah, Donnie, I can do that. Donnie, use the chat. Text messaging me. Come on, man. But yeah, I'll email that to you, no problem. So demonstrate the ability to meet psychological and physical criteria to perform the job. We'll touch base a little bit in that when we talk about mental health of the responder. It's very important that you maintain your own mental health. If you're not stable, or if you're not emotionally intelligent, it's gonna be very hard for you to help that patient through their emotional issues that they're going to be having on scene, or to help yourself and also with your family and friends. So we'll discuss a little bit about that, about psychological, how we're going to be able to best help, because this job isn't for everybody. A lot of people get into it, and a lot of people end up with different types of issues because of going through the job. Depending on where you work, or the acuity of your patients that you always have, it can have an effect on you. And the best way to help yourself through that is to know what helps you go through it, what helps you individually move through that process as a responder, or as an individual. All right, so certification, it's going to require certification every 2 years. Most states recognize an REMT certification, and then most states provide reciprocity for those certifications. Some states may exclude some people from AEMT certifications, such as people with certain legal infractions or people with health problems that could make performance of an AEMT task dangerous. So make sure that that's why we do the physicals and things like that. We want to make sure that we're well aware of what's going on, or well aware of ourselves and how far we can go as well. All right. Everybody's seen this at some point, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, 1990. Protects people who have a disability from being denied access to programs and services provided by state and local governments. It prohibits employers from failing to provide full and equal employment to the disabled. And Title I of the ADA protects those with disabilities seeking gainful employment under many circumstances. Employers with 15 or more employees are required to adjust their processes so a candidate with a disability can be considered for the position. You may see that question. If you have any other questions, you can contact your state EMS office, and they'll give you more information. All right, the beginnings of EMS. It's volunteer ambulances in World War I. Long tradition. Specially trained corps. Wrong. Look at me. There we go. There we go. I accidentally hit the wrong button. All right. Field medics and rapid helicopter evacuation it took casualties to aid stations during World War II. Field medics and specially trained corpsmen provided care and took casualties to aid stations in World War II. And then during the Korean conflict is when we started utilizing helicopters and mobile army units, mobile army surgical hospitals, when we started utilizing those. And then a lot of advances in trauma care resulted from experiences in Korean and Vietnam conflicts. So you'll see as you go through, especially if you go to trauma conferences, things like we have one here on the Gulf Coast. Every year we have a trauma conference, and it's fantastic to go to. Anytime you get a chance to go to any extra learning or additional learning that you can go to, definitely go to it. A lot of our trauma education comes from battlefield, the battlefield experience. So there's a lot to learn out there, and there's a lot of trauma that happens out there. So as well as there's a lot of different countries, a lot of different people of different modalities that get in there and start, they all put their hands in it and they put their heads together and they come up with some very good advances in trauma medicine. So it's quite a neat thing to go some of those conferences and learn that. If you've never had the opportunity to be in the military and experience that for yourself, definitely learn from it if you can by going out and getting the information. There in the late 70s, it says. All right, so I know you remember this, or you may vaguely remember it. Modern EMS originated in 1966 with the publication of Accidental Death and Disability, the neglected disease of modern society, otherwise known as what? Can anybody tell me what that was called? All right, so the report that I'm talking about with this is known as the white paper, and it was prepared jointly by the Committees on Trauma and Shock of the National Academy of Sciences National Research Council. It revealed a ton of inadequacies for pre-hospital care and treatment, and then Congress actually mandated from there, mandated 2 federal agencies to address the issues. One of them being the NHSTA of Department of Transportation and the Department of Health and Human Services. So, which came to the DOT came out with the first EMT curriculum in the early 70s. The AAOS, or the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, prepared the first EMT book in 1971. And actually, this textbook is the AMT level of that book. Through the 1970s, each state developed legislation, and EMS system was created, and an EMS system was created for it. In 75, the AMA, or the American Medical Association, recognized the emergency medicine as a medical specialty, and emergency departments became accepted standard of care throughout. All right, there are different levels of training. Licensure is a state function, so each state has a certain way to do or go through their licensure process. It's different variations of practice, training, and licensure requirements. What sets that? All right, so it says millions of lay people are trained in BLS CPR. And that is true. And a lot of people think they know BLS CPR. And you will show up on scenes if you haven't already been up on scenes where people definitely they're starting it. If they're doing something, that's great. If they're not doing something, then we'll work with that as well if we need to. Our main goal is that whenever we show up, that we provide that next echelon of care for that patient. We always want to provide better. All right, before we jump into this, let's go ahead and take a little 10-minute break. And we're back. There, we'll change the name. All right, moving on. Automated external defibrillators, or AEDs. They detect life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias and deliver appropriate electrical shock. They're designed to be used by the untrained lay people and include in every pre-hospital emergency training. So going over AEDs a little bit, what arrhythmias will they actually shock? You can either
VTAC, VFib.
Okay. All right. That is correct. Emergency medical responders and EMS because of, including the EMS system because of the presence of people trained and able to initiate BLS and other urgent care when other urgent care can't be insured. So EMRs are going to include your law enforcement officers or your LEOs, firefighters, park rangers, ski patrollers, you name it. So knowing about Good Samaritans is that one of the things that they can do sometimes is interfere with operation and endanger themselves and others. So part of our job as well is to ensure that we keep them safe also. You don't want to go up on screen screaming and yelling, get the hell out of the way or anything like that at these people to get. You may want to do that, but you should not be doing that. Best thing to do to kind of help, if you want to help set the stage, is be calm, cool, and collected. Whenever you're giving directions or whenever you're asking of something or asking someone to do something for you or anything else, you need to be clear, concise, straight to the point. So that way there's no mistaking what you need done or what you need them to do for you. Even if it is go stand over there or go do this, or please stand over here, ma'am, sir, what have you, or however else you want to noun or pronoun that. So you want to make sure that whenever you do that, you're professional and then clear, concise, and to the point. Be stern whenever you speak, or be sure of yourself, more of be assertive, so that they know who is actually running that situation. They're very good. Bystanders are also good to be used as information collection. If you need to get information from someone, it's good to ask. If you can't get it from the patient themselves, a lot of times they can give you a lot of good input. Know how to decipher that information. Know what is good information, what's bad information, and that's going to come with experience. Also, pay attention to who's around on scene. Pay attention to your surroundings as far as that goes, and who those Samaritans are, because depending on the type of situation, that good Samaritan may not be so good, and you may have been the only one that was able to recognize that, or if you're pretty good at remembering faces, you may be able to help solve some issues later on. So make sure you're paying attention and keep your head on a swivel of all the bystanders. All right, AMT course training provided knowledge and skills in specific aspects of ALS. As you can see in the picture, during IV insertions. The AMT course training is probably 200 to 400 hours. And that's mostly because you need to be able to deliver an expanded range of skills beyond the EMT level. And then a lot of your AMTs provide limited ALS care to regions where paramedics are not available. Also, like what in Harrison County, for example, you'll have an AMT show up, and if need be, a paramedic can meet them en route, or sometimes a paramedic can ride along if need be. Try to avoid that, but if need be, a paramedic can ride along. And paramedics there, 1,000 to 1,300 hours more, usually divided between classroom and internship training. You'll feel like you're working for free. You're going to feel like that during your AMT rotations as well. Like you're working for free, and you feel like that. If you do feel like that, that's because you are in some ways. It's the best way to learn. Make sure you jump in and do all of it when you get that opportunity. Now more and more you can see that people are able to get associate's degrees out of it. Like locally, you can get associate degree out of it. Or that's actually how I received one of my associates, was my paramedic school. They had the Finish in 4 program. Look for those type of courses if you can find them. EMS agenda for the future is a multidisciplinary national review outlining all aspects of EMS delivery. So this was first published by the NHTSA in 1996. 1996. Altogether, there are 14 EMS attributes that are described, which are guiding principles for continued evolution of EMS. Right. In 1999, the NHTSA and the Maternal and Child Health Bureau, Health Resources Service Administration, developed the EMS Agenda for the Future Implementation Guide. The guide proposes 10 priority objectives aimed at leading us closer to achieving all the components outlined in the EMS Agenda for the Future. The objectives correspond to 3 priority areas in particular: building the bridges to strengthen partnerships and relationships with agencies, create tools and resources to increase efficiency and standardize activities across widespread areas, and then develop infrastructure to increase the capacity of EMS. All right, so you'll see this term in the future if you haven't already seen it already. 911 system is usually the public safety access point, or PSAP, PSAP. You'll hear that common, or you'll hear that phraseology commonly. And that's your communication center, or trained dispatchers, your EMDs and what have you. So now with the E911 or enhanced 911, you can provide additional data like addresses, phone numbers of the caller. I know if you buy any new property or anything like that, you have to get it registered through E911 so that they can mark it, and they can put a new address in there and new phone number and an owner of the caller or a point of contact. So training the public on how to summon an EMS unit is an important part of the public education system responsibility. A lot of times now you'll see it on social media. Social media has played a huge role of allowing people trained in CPR to be alerted for a cardiac arrest in their area. I know if you've ever heard of apps like Pulse Point, things like that, it'll actually tell you that an AED is needed in this area, and you can be a layperson that has it. If you have CPR experience or what have you, it'll pop up on your phone and tell you, hey, you got something going on here, and you can actually run over there. It saved many lives, people in stores and everything else that show up and are able to provide fast and effective CPR to people pre-arrival, pre-responder arrival. I just say Pulse Point because I know it was one of the big ones that was preached upon during Fire Rescue International here a few years back. So EMD system assists dispatchers in giving callers vital instruction until EMS arrival. You see there, reality of call may differ from dispatch description. Does it ever at times? So some things that we try to do to get that information or good information is come up with better questioning, better lines of questioning for our dispatchers. Also, we try to educate people via television or social media on how to give better descriptions. It's all in there for part of our easy access programs. So depending on the caller information, the dispatcher selects parts of an emergency system to activate. So I know a lot of them now. If you look at some APCO functions, things like that, through dispatch systems or different types of dispatch systems, it'll actually take, like it says here, the information that they're given, and that'll let you know what truck is coming to you, what station, what truck, what area, what service is going to come to you. In some of these bigger cities, it's got a full scale down of who exactly is going to come your way, and they will contact those individual units to come your way as well. You can see some of the numbers there from NFPA, or the National Fire Protection Agency or Association, sorry. So 46% of fire departments provide BLS care. It's a big percentage. 16% of fire departments provide ALS care, and 39% of fire departments do not provide emergency medical services. That's a big number as well. That's a surprising number. We talked about this earlier. So a big part of being able to make the system better is to be active in your community. So very important. You're going to use a lot of equipment, a lot of different type of equipment. It is so important to know that it has an assigned place and that it's working properly and that you're familiar with the specific model. All right. D'Antonio, if he can definitely tell you that I harped on this at nauseum, making sure you know where your equipment's at, how it works. Does it function today where it may not function today, where it may have worked just fine yesterday? Well, check it again. The thing is you can trust what somebody says, but you need to verify. Trust, but verify when somebody passes something on to you. Okay. But you definitely want to check. I'm kind of a, not a fan, depending on of the tags that we used to put on our bags, because whenever there's a tag on a bag, people are like, well, tags on the bag, that means everything's good. Right. Everything is not expired, maybe, and everything may be in there, but do I know where it's at? Can I lay my hand on it when I need it the most, as quickly as I can when I need it most? You need to know more than just it is in this bag. You need to know exactly where it's at, what's it feel like without looking at it. I mean, down to the smallest detail. Some of the items that it talks about here, familiar with the specific models. So if you're on a truck and you use a certain type of monitor defibrillator, you want to make sure what the tolerances are. That, if it's a Phillips, or if it's a life pack, or, if it's the life pack, or if it's a Zoll or something like that, what are its operating ranges? Where is it good and where is it bad at? What are some things that can hinder its operation? What are some things that can enhance its operation? What you need to know also, if you show up and they have an AED, is the plugins going to be compatible with your specific model? Your specific model of monitor defibrillator. Need to know these things. I know when I was flying in AirVac, and Rob can attest to this, that the monitors that we used, we had to know all of the warnings and notes. And then we had to know, especially the defibrillators, we had to know the main information without reference, down to how much electricity it used and knowing the heat tolerances. We had to know how much it weighed. I can still tell you that we used the LifePak 15. It weighs 17.5 pounds. The notes are that it works between -4 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. I can still tell you that information because we study that information. And then know your suction units, what their operating ranges are. You need to know that, hey, it may take it 30 minutes to go down to dead, but it takes it 4 hours to charge. So you need to know that when it's dead, it's going to be 4 hours on standby charging up. You may need to get another battery in there, things like that. It's really going to help you. Oxygen, that's a huge thing to know. The oxygen that not only do you carry in your bags, but the oxygen in the trucks. What are its tolerances? What are its ranges? How much CPAP does a 30-minute or a 20-minute ride worth of oxygen? How much oxygen you're going to use in that 20-minute ride if you put this patient on CPAP, or if you got this patient running at 100%? Are you going to have to do a bottle change out before you get there? Making sure, because there's nothing more aggravating that you just hiked a bag into a house up a quarter-mile road, and you get there and you have about 2 minutes worth of oxygen that's in your carry-along. So make sure you're keeping up with that. You may be called out to drive an ambulance. So you need to be familiar with your roads. If you're going to be in a first in area, know at a minimum, know the main roads. So check all the equipment, supplies, check all the communications. In an emergency situation, the first thing to always fail is communications. So make sure that that's working for the time being. Make sure you check all the key fluids and the conditions of tires, checking for nails and tires, things like that. Making sure all the driver's controls work. All your built-ins, making sure that they work as well. Human resources, they don't do anything. No, I'm kidding. They do quite a bit. They can keep you out of trouble or get you into it if you aren't the one that was careful. So it talks about there moving from one state to another, talking about reciprocity. So medical direction and control. Physician medical director authorizes providers to give medical care in the field. Appropriate care is described in standing orders and protocols. So one of the things about medical direction is that whenever you make that phone call, you need to be confident in what you're making that phone call for. And are you asking for them to give you permission to use something? Or are you telling them what your plan is and then they say that's okay or not? One of the things that I always learned is that to build that confidence in your medical control is that I would always tell them what I plan on doing, and then they just say, "Yep, sounds good. See you when you get here." Is to notify them that you're on the right track. That's really what you want it to sound like. That's how you build that rapport between your physicians at the hospital and your medical direction and your crew. Know your standing orders and your protocols. I know there's an app. There's an app for that now, and you can scroll through it or what have you, but do you really want to be scrolling through it? A protocol is something that you know you have to do. Standing order is something that you know you can do. So make sure that you know those parameters. Study, study, study. So if it's a standing order, then you don't have to call for that med control. If it's a standing order, you're not required to. You're a provider. Provide whatever's on that standing order if it calls for it. So big differences between your online medical direction and offline medical direction. So your online medical direction or direct, it's physician directions given over the phone or the radio. And then it can be communicated by a physician's designee as well. Protocols will identify as an EMS physician who can be reached by radio or telephone for med control during a call. So you should be able to have that information there in front of you. On some calls, once the squad's initiated immediate urgent care and given its radio report, the online med control will actually confirm or modify the proposed plan. That's why I say you call and you tell them what you plan on doing, and then they can make a modification from there and give you permission to do something or not. Basically, it's all about what their limits are, because you're operating on their licensure. So offline or indirect is going to be your standing orders. your training that you get that you should always fall back on, or your supervision authorized by medical director. Those medical directors cost a lot of money, so make sure that they earn it. And a lot of times, if you start presenting those questions, or you start bringing the same scenarios up to this medical control, then a lot of times that can create policy changes, where maybe it's a little bit easier. Maybe you can take something that once you were having to contact medical direction for, maybe there comes a point where you can go ahead and turn that into a standing order. Makes it easier on everyone. The integration of health services means that pre-hospital care you administer is coordinated with the care administered at the hospital. That's why we go and we make sure that we give good reports to the hospital, so that we can continue in that continuum of care. Okay, we're not starting over again. Same goes for when you arrive on scene and you're gathering information from a firefighter or EMT that's previously on scene, or what have you, or a person that's previously on scene. You'll hear it from patients all the time. Already told them. They already know what. Make sure you listen to that unit that is already there. Pay attention. Guess what else it does? It gives you that first available information to start trending on your patient. Trying to find a field diagnosis for a patient makes it so much easier, or a differential diagnosis for a patient makes it so much easier if you can start trending information. And you're only going to be able to do that by collecting information that was there previous to you showing up on scene. Because if you're having to start from square one, you're already behind. So when you deliver that patient to the ED, you're simply transferring the patient to another care provider. So make sure that you give them the good information. So also pay attention to where you're sending your patients. Study that report that you should be receiving from day to day of what hospitals have what available. Pay attention to those situations where hospitals are on diversion or on saturation, because if you turn around and you have a mass casualty event, then you may need to know, hey, they're on saturation, or they're on diversion right now. We may need to get more helicopters here to carry patients to other area hospitals. That's some of the things we need to know. You need to know, hey, this hospital has neuro today for these stroke patients. This hospital does not have neuro today for stroke patients, so on and so forth. So mobile integrated healthcare, it's a new system. Utilizes the pre-hospital spectrum. Evolved as a result of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. So it's going to offer access to care to patients who live in communities with limited medical resources. Community paramedicine is a good term for it, if anybody remembers that. That's right, Brandon. Constant ED saturation and diversion during COVID. It was constant. It still is at times, depending on what's going on. Still constant. But you need to know about that. It also helps depending on the type of patient you have. If you have an elderly patient that has, you know, other disease processes going on or underlying issues going on, do you think that it's okay for them to sit in an ER for hours on end? You know, is it something that you have to be a patient advocate and speak to that patient? Try to keep them informed as well. More and more, we talked about the community paramedicine. So it's a new training aspect, somewhat new, in which experienced paramedics receive advanced training to equip them to provide services within the community. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have patients that come from the hospital or leave the hospital that have follow-on orders or that need checkups, let's say. And these community paramedics are able to go out there, make sure that patients are in compliance with their medications, make sure that these patients, you know, aren't having follow-on symptoms or anything like that, or that they're maintaining their own standard of care. A lot of places use this for, say, your frequent flyers, from what we call people that take ambulance rides quite often. I know in our area, D'Antonio, maybe he may remember, there were a few patients that I would stop by their house every now and then while I was out on my ride around as battalion chief and paramedic. I'd go by there just to pop in and, hey, how are you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you on your medication? Are you making sure you're doing your medications? Just wanted to come check on you. And that may prevent you from that 2 o'clock in the morning call, just that stop and say hello. So that's kind of a way to embed yourself in your community, build that rapport within your community. So your medical director maintains quality control, ensures all staff members are going to meet appropriate medical standards at all times. So med direction or your medical director and other staff are going to review your patient care reports. Sometimes you may have somebody that's not even a paramedic reviewing your reports. So make sure that when you're doing your reports, that you're following your documentation guidelines. So in some places you'll have review meetings, or you'll have run review, as it's called, periodic run reviews. I know in our area for the paramedics, it is, Donnie, you may be able to elaborate if they're making it mandatory for AEMTs. I don't know, but I know for paramedics it was mandatory to go to run reviews.
Not yet, but I foresee it coming.
Yeah. And we used to go over it at the fire department every now and then. If we had a significant call or high acuity patient, we would get back together and have like our own small run review, just a quality control check, just to make sure that we're on our P's and Q's, or we're doing things correctly, or if there's things that we may need to look at changing in our policies and protocols to better advocate for, or be better advocates for our patients. Refresher training and continuing education is important. It is most definitely important. And being so, that keeps you on your feet. You'll never forget, or you'll never think about how much that you've actually forgotten until you set a refresher course, a good refresher course, or you go to a conference, or you go to some of these classes. Get those CEUs. I see a term in there, CQI, which is a continuous quality improvement. So a lot of times your med direction may be the one that establishes that. Another function of evaluation process, determine ways to eliminate human error. Times when errors can occur can be when communicating with other AMTs or transferring the patient to the ED. So make sure that you're given that good SBAR or that good transfer, that patient transfer report. Driving to the scene can be hazardous. So making sure that you're, that EVOC training, that you're paying attention during those classes, that you're getting your drive time in there. You're getting that experience. Be safe. Patient can be dropped during lifting a maneuver or in moving. As you know, everybody here knows that is unacceptable to be dropping patients. So make sure that you have enough people on scene to make that move. Yeah, you don't get paid to sit in a hospital bed. Watch your back. So make sure that you're paying attention to your own posture, your own movements. You have enough people to move those patients. Right? You don't have to be a superhero when you're out there. You just need to be, because you may have to be out there again. No use in hurting yourself today. Got to keep earning that paycheck, right? That's why you call the FD. They like picking up heavy things. It's not like that anymore. That a lot of firefighters aren't picking up as much heavy things as they should anymore. So something you should always ask is, why am I doing this? Knowing the why behind the what we do. Okay. Using cheat sheets to limit errors, the little cards or what have you, they're great little reference cards. I used to have them on my ID card or ID badge that had little pin, or I had several hardback cards that I could use. We put things on the bags. We put things on the equipment themselves. If we needed a quick reference, we put it on that piece of equipment. Yep, that's right, Sarah. You can find fantastic some of these reference cards on Amazon. They would be great for your ride along. Something that you can constantly study. Little flip books that you can constantly study. Use downtime to refresh skills. Use less often. So one of the things that we always preach is what we call halves in the fire service, which is going to be, I got to write it down so I don't get it wrong. High acuity, low frequency events. High acuity, low frequency events. That's what high acuity, meaning the bad, right? Bad, the worst that you can think of, your worst day or that other person's worst day. Okay. It doesn't happen often. It happens very rarely. So that's something that you should definitely train on even more. We get into the habit sometimes of training on things that we do every day. And why is that? Because it's comfortable. That's what we do. We excel. We can knock this training out if we train on this. Let's talk about CPR today. Let's talk about the simple things. That's well and good, but you should be hitting on those high acuity, low frequency events. So high acuity meaning the worst. What's the worst that can happen? Low frequency doesn't happen a lot or rarely ever happens. And then events, everybody knows what that is. Something I always used to say is that those high acuity events, that's what's going to be in the newspaper or on the news. Think about that. You want to be on top of your game when that situation comes. Best way to do is make a list or have a have statement for everything and study it up. use downtime. Who in here has downtime? I didn't think so. Well, lucky you, Katie, having that downtime. You should share a little bit of it with somebody else, with some other folks around here. One thing that we always had in the fire service, or that we've had in places. Oh, absolutely, I get that. So one thing that we always did was every day was training day. Whenever I was at the Combat Readiness Training Center, we did every day is training day, which means Mondays we had medical Mondays, Tuesdays technical Tuesdays, Wednesdays wing Wednesdays, which means you had to study an aircraft because we were at an airport or in a base. Thursdays was truck Thursdays. Friday was fireground Friday. Saturday was scenario Saturday, and Sunday was safety Sunday. So every day was a training day, and we just lined those days up so that we could ensure that we had something to train. And then we had things like a 2-hour, training for a minimum of 2 hours a day, every day, every single day. And it doesn't always have to be out there booking it, getting sweaty or things like that. Reading an article, that can be a form of training. Watching a YouTube video or some sort of documentary or something like that, that's a form of training. Just make sure that you're always learning. So information is really good. Your documentation of your information is fantastic. So making sure that you have fantastic documentation. Study up on that documentation. Find out what fits for you. Is it do you use chart? Do you use chronological? These are things that you need to know, and be consistent with it. Pick one and run with it. When you study those or when you use that process, I'm real big on these processes. Whenever you use that process, it's going to work. And then you'll get better at it as time goes along. What that also does, though, is it's going to help provide better training. If it's going to help provide better training in the future. If it's not documented and documented well, it didn't happen. That's absolutely correct. So it's going to help. It's going to help with educational sessions. It's also going to pull, or they're going to pull logs to see if they need to justify hiring more personnel. So helping you out in the long run. What it also does is if you're consistently having issues with certain types of illnesses or having certain types of issues with equipment, you put that in your report. You may find out that you may get new equipment. You may get different types of drugs, something that's, get something in there that works. And that starts off with thorough documentation. That's right. CYA, CYB, cover your butt. Journal of Emergency Medical Services reports annually on how EMS is delivered within the United States. So Journal of Emergency Medical Services, you can look that up, GEMS. It's a fantastic magazine that they have, or they have online issues as well. You get a lot of good information from the GEMS articles. When we start to get further on, we'll talk about some of those articles. We'll talk about things like passive oxygenation, things like that. I will always preach passive oxygenation. Some financial resources available for EMS departments. The instructors for AEMT courses are approved and licensed by the state EMS office or agency. And we are approved doesn't mean that they're very thorough with us. Like they say, those that can't do, teach. Alrighty. All right, transport to specialty centers. Some centers focus on specific types of care, such as trauma, specific types of patients, such as children. So knowing those, knowing your level, each trauma care level of your hospitals, knowing what their specialties are, what specialties they can handle. It's gonna make it so much easier when you start to go underway with some of these high acuity patients. Interfacility transport. If you've been working on an ambulance for long enough, you will definitely go through this. So during that transport, you are responsible for that patient. You're not just the bus driver or the attendant. You're not just an attendant. You also are supposed to be caring for that patient. Make sure it's important to make sure that you continue that care, get those vitals, get those statuses, and then do you have to, same thing, do a SBAR or a transfer report once you get there. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. I live on a Navy base, so I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Every now and then the speakers will go off. It helps me know when it's time for me to go dodo. So one thing that's important is being familiar with your hospital, observe the equipment and how it's used. You may get to go do clinicals at your local hospitals. That's very important. You get in there and you ask questions. You get in there and you piddle around with stuff. Get somebody to, make sure somebody's with you, but that allows it. But make sure you know what they have available. Just push all the buttons. Yep, sometimes that works too. Building that rapport, that's very important. Working well with others. There's your roles and responsibilities, table 1-4 in your book. That is a question I do not know right offhand. It's in the, I think it's on the website. I'll have to look. I can get that question for you. answered though. I keep a notebook right next to my desk. And anytime somebody brings up a question, I write it down. I try to make sure I get it back to you. All right. Look that up. No need to apologize. There's the professional attributes of an AEMT. Read them, learn them, love them. You're going to be each one of those at any one time. But at times you will find yourself starting to get complacent, and that being that discipline, having that discipline is going to be important to be able to meet some of these attributes we talk about here. Always use it as a reference. Look at that guy. Look at them creases. Clean. Pants aren't creased though. That's kind of disappointing. Talked about that patient advocate. So every patient is entitled to every patient. Every patient is entitled to compassion, respect, and the best care. So let's make sure we're providing that. Remember, you are a healthcare professional. You're bound by patient confidentiality and HIPAA. So when you get a patient and you get done with that patient, please do not post anything on Facebook. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that you didn't mention their name or an address or an area. Just mentioning a situation can get you into trouble, because if somebody can tie an event to a person, or can tie a social media post to a certain event having to do with a person, that could be a HIPAA violation. So just the best rule of thumb is don't do it. Another rule of thumb is, if you don't mind, if you wouldn't mind reading a newspaper or having to explain it to your mama. And that's how you figure out if you're going to do something or not, when you have to give that long thought. If you wouldn't mind explaining it to your mama or reading in the newspaper. Think about that. All right, that's the end of that one. We will go on to chapter 2. That is not chapter 2, Chase. All right, let's take a little 10-minute break while we're doing this. Why is that so loud? All right. Chapter 2. And you get one of them silent mouses, I guess. Because that thing is loud. Chapter 2. Moving on. Do we have any questions so far about any of this? This is all pretty vanilla. I'm ready to start getting into patient assessment and all the good stuff. Let's get into the good stuff. Yeah, Tia, these are pretty slow. If you ever get any questions, just let me know, any of y'all. That way we can make sure everybody gets it. Right. Are any of you going to be doing your ride-alongs down here on the coast? I'm guessing Ty will be one of them.
More than likely.
You gonna try and get on with Jody?
Probably not. Me and him agree to disagree on most things.
Boy.
I promise you one thing, he hears everything,
Oh, I know.
especially with them radar ears you got.
You ever see you know, I know it's AAA, but you ever talk to Mark Barnes or any of them?
No, I hadn't really talked to any of them lately. I still talk to one of the supervisors. I've worked with him a good bit, but actually Kevin Hurton. He was my partner for about 2 years, but that's about it.
New Albany. Now, where's New Albany at?
It's gonna be up there by Tupelo, Chase.
Tupelo. Okay, I thought so. I don't remember if I had any contacts up there. Not on the EMS side, on the fire side, I could.
Y'all have anybody up that way? Is AMR up that way, or is it private services?
Up there in New Albany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rob has an agreement with AMR. If their sister company, they may could work something out that way. I don't know. You'd have to talk to him. It's just a thought.
You know, one of the best ride-alongs that I took was as in low. It's got low call volume. Because I mean, you say that at AMR SMS, that it's because their call volume is just high. It's so high. It's crazy.
AMR's SMS sucks. Or its call volume.
They always are. I got on as a paramedic out there for a little bit, and I tell you what, if you can work AMR SMS as a paramedic, you can work anywhere. Rob should be able to have. Do we need to find our own? Rob should be able to have contacts in your areas, and and he should be able to make contact with agreements and everything else. That's what he's good at. But if you feel like you know there's something you want to, someplace you want to try out or anything else, I tell you who I had a great time with, if you don't mind the little bit of travel, is Pafford. I actually had a great time at clinicals with Pafford.
Tia, didn't you say you worked for Acadian?
Oh yeah, Acadian, you're hooked up.
If you work for Acadian, ARES already has an agreement with a clinical agreement with them. You get with Rob on it.
Yeah, when we get close to that time, we'll start doing that. Yeah, it is. It's a good ways away, Leanne. But they are really good though. I had a lot of fun. All right. National EMS Education Standard Competencies. Oh my goodness. My dog just scared me. I was sitting here, I pulled my chair up and he was laying down underneath my desk. All of a sudden I felt something up against my leg. It was my dog. I got a little beagle. Scared the mess out of me. We may one day. He's pretty shy right now. He's still trying to get over 4th of July events. I might show him at the end of class. All right, take care of others and must take care of ourselves. We talked about that a little bit in the last lecture. Having self-control, necessary to respond effectively to suffering of others, develop through training, experience, and dedication. It's going to be very important because you're going to go on some calls that you don't necessarily agree with what's going on or what happened or what have you, the situation at hand, or you may have different feelings about it, and we still have to treat our patients and give our patients the utmost in care. In order to do that, we have to maintain some control over our feelings and emotions and stay on our tasks. Everybody should know about communicable diseases by now and how they spread. If you did not figure that out last year, I do not know where you have been. Everybody should know how to wash their hands and wear a mask and appropriate PPE. Proper cleaning and disinfecting of the ambulance and equipment will help prevent transfer of illnesses between patients. We used to do pretty good at making sure that we wipe down our equipment or sprayed our equipment down after each call if we had to bring gear inside. Some other things we did is we may not bring all of our gear inside so that we could minimize having to clean those or we could minimize contamination. And that was on every call. We kind of try to decipher what was the appropriate equipment to bring in and what was the appropriate equipment to maybe leave outside, right outside the door. All contagious diseases are infectious. Not all infectious diseases are contagious, though. So different ways of contact: direct contact, indirect contact. Know your protocols for exposure. There you go. They're even going to tell you how to sneeze. All EMS personnel are trained in handling bloodborne pathogens, approaching patients who may have infectious diseases, and training is required by OSHA. We do it every year. It's all documented. Proper hand hygiene. Know how to wash your hands. Won't beat that dead horse. Change your gloves between patients. That's important. You know what isn't? You know what's important as well? Wearing your gloves with every patient. Knowing how to give those IVs without having to pop a finger off. knowing how to get that feel down, making sure you wear goggles or making sure you wear some sort of safety glasses. I wear them on every call because you never know what's going to happen. Last thing, and keep your mouth shut. Also, when you're doing some of these procedures, keep your mouth shut. I know a lot of people like to stick their tongues out and everything else. But keep your tongue in your mouth and keep your mouth shut. Another thing is, let me tell you this too, something that I will harp on. Your pin that you keep in your shirt, people will take that pin and they will have their gloves on and handle that pen and write on their paper and then take their gloves off, do the squirt, and then grab that same pen to do tic-tac-toe or whatever else, sign a debit card off with during the same shift. All right. That doesn't make sense. So have a separate pen. Have a pen that you use for your patient reports and keep it in a different area, and have a pen that you use on the regular and keep it in a different area, and then learn those areas. But do not use the same pen. I know, like, something at my house, what I used to do is all of my stuff that I used for patient was I had a little black pouch that was in my cargo pants that I could use. Okay. As well as when I came home, if I didn't change at work, which I usually did, I changed at work. I took it off before I came inside. My boots and everything. You do not want to carry some of that junk that you're walking through to your kids and to your husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends and everything else. You don't want to carry that in with you. You don't want to carry it into your house, period. It don't matter no matter who's there. But definitely make sure that you have good, clean hygiene all the way around. Look at that old boy up there just sitting there talking about goggles are best. He done got splattered. That's terrible. Yeah. Let me just pull the finger off this glove and touch you. Yeah, that's right. And they do it all the time. They're like, it helps me feel better. It helps me feel for that vein better. Whoop. Wrong button again. Gowns are good for extensive body substances. Knowing how to put that gown on quickly. That's something else too, because I know during the height of COVID, we were going to 3 or 4 patients a day that were COVID positive, and you're having to get in these gowns and out of these gowns constantly. Knowing how to do that correctly, how to get in and out of them correctly, and how to do it quickly, because sometimes you be putting these gowns on, even if you're doing CPR or anything like that. You have to do it quickly while you're on the move, getting this stuff done. So make sure you know how to do that. Bring a change of uniform with you. It will pay off. Everybody should know about masks and respirators and what the differences are. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So having that pocket mask or that bag mask device. Sharps. Knowing how to get rid of those sharps. Be diligent about that. Don't just toss it down and say, I'll get it in a minute. Do it right then. Do it right then. We won't get into something else just yet. We'll talk about that later. Talking about sharps. We'll talk about that in another chapter when we talk about some procedures. So talked about that. Know and use your department's infection control plan. Know those forms that you may have to fill out. What's on them? Just look them over. Keep you safe. Clean the ambulance after each run. That's good practice. Cleaning should be done at the hospital whenever possible. That's also a good practice. And then hear them asking you to 1017 every 2 minutes, if not more. Or asking what your status is every 30 seconds and telling you to hurry up. Immunity comes from having been immunized or vaccinated, recovering from an infection of that germ. It may not be a permanent immunity. It may only be temporary. You know, the immunity may only last for a little while. So don't think just because you've had it that you can't get it again, or you're not susceptible to getting it again. Maintain your own personal health. Receive your immunizations. Get a tuberculosis skin test yearly. And always follow standard precautions. You will not know which patients have communicable diseases. You can assume all you want. You cannot know. I just looked down at the chat. They're not the only one, believe you me. There's some exposure protection or exposure action. There's some good advice. Wear your seatbelts. Ensuring your equipment is restrained. That's very important. Donning the appropriate PPE. But making sure that your equipment is tied down or is secured in the ambulance. I tell you what, we have a unit phone. I wish that at a certain place that I worked at that we had a unit phone or that we could utilize a radio to contact some hospitals. I think you could, but they preferred you to use the phone line, and you would have to use your own personal cell phone. So you'd be neck deep in a high acuity patient, just getting after it. And then you have to pull out your cell phone with your gloved hand sometimes and operate your cell phone and then shove it right back in your pocket. That used to make me so mad every time I had to do it. There you can see a picture of a highway scene there, knowing that, you know, where do you park in the event of a motor vehicle crash, or that you're working that scene, and you will work them, is where do you park your vehicle? You know, how do you park your vehicle? In what area are you going to park your vehicle? So making sure you know that information, get together with your local fire departments to figure out what they expect you to do, what your expectations are on scenes. Build those expectations as you go. That's one of the things that we always try to do was, hey, before you show up, we want to have this done. We want to have this much done for your patient so that we can get them in and out of here. Hey, we would like for you to park here if we're on scene already on the highway and we're doing a blocking maneuver. We want you to park inside this area. It's very important to make sure that when you're on the highway that you're using the proper PPE while you're out there. Scene hazards at ERG. Remain uphill and upwind. Sometimes we forget that. Definitely during these vehicle collisions, making sure you're paying attention to what's going on around you. When you're sticking your head inside that vehicle, watch for down power lines. But when you're sticking your head inside that vehicle, if the airbags aren't already blown, they can blow. And when they do, it's no good. So make sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings, or that you're talking to your crew, your fire crew or your police crews that are out there. Ask your local fire department if y'all can join in on some vehicle extrication training. Yeah, that's right. They'll make you need a new vehicle when they do blow. Yep. Mostly pants. Pay attention to those down power lines. Don't approach down wires. Don't try and kick them out of the way or what have you. We deal with a lot of that during storms. Knowing the difference between a down power line and a guide wire. That's a good thing to learn as well. Lightning. Fire. During these fires, when you get called out there, making sure you're prepared to receive those patients. Some of the hazards that you're gonna be trying to mitigate is smoke inhalation, so oxygen deficiencies, other toxic type gases. If you have any kind of reversals or anything like that, your ambulance company carries for cyanide poison or anything like that, that's really good, or hydrogen cyanide poison. That's really good to have. Having that stuff ready. Don't just sit there with your hands in your pockets until somebody comes up to you that they need help. Just make sure you already know your threat. Make sure you're prepared to mitigate that threat whenever they get there. Yep. Like Ty said here, be mindful of firefighters in the rehab area. So that's most of the time where we would have our ambulance set up is in the rehab area. So that they can get vitals or check on people that may look like they look a little woozy or what have you. We would set them up in that area. You'd have some that would have everything prepared. They would have the stretcher ready with the equipment and everything. And then you had some that would just pull up in the truck and sit outside with their hands in their pockets and then caught off guard whenever somebody shows up or when somebody falls out. because they didn't want to get the stretcher out. All right, violence can be created by civil disturbances, domestic disputes, and crime scenes. Large gatherings of potential hostile people. So make sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings, what's going on. Always have an exit. Don't let any threat between you and your exit. When there's several agencies in response, know who's in command. Always ask that. Who's the incident commander? Or where's the incident command team? Don't disturb a crime scene evidence unless absolutely necessary. Some of the things was you come across a GSW or a gunshot wound, you don't cut through the hole, cut around the hole, on pants or on shirts or anything like that. Be wary of hostile patients. Be wary of other patients that you can't see in some of these homes. Sometimes it may, if they're able to, if you can get somebody to come outside so you can do your patient evaluation or your patient assessment, that's probably the best thing that you can do, is have your patient come outside. Hey, can he or she step out here on the front, in the front yard or backyard or what have you? That's something that, during COVID, we started asking. We should have been asking it all along. We really started asking it during COVID. And then I kind of made it a regular practice and getting people to come outside if they can, if they could come outside. Behavioral emergencies. Watch your back on those. Watch your patient's reactions. Document everything. Some protective clothing. Why didn't the guy even shine his boots? He could have at least shined his boots, for that picture. Eye pro and ear pro. Good stuff. Nowadays, having to get into body armor. Sunscreen. Hats. Knowing what your stress levels are, what your stress tolerances are. There's some physiologic signs of stress. Right. Acute severe stressors are sudden, severe, and unusually stressful emotional, such as mass casualty incidents or MCIs, serious injury or traumatic death of a child, crash with injuries caused by emergency services personnel, death or serious injury of a coworker. So just make sure that you make sure that you take care of yourself, make sure you take care of others, and make sure you get help if you feel like you need it. There's no shame in it. PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, characterized by re-experiencing the event and over-responding to stimuli that recall the event. And there's some of the other symptoms there. So more and more, we're starting to see responders with PTSD signs and symptoms and treatments that they're having to get. And I think it's not because we're getting weaker, it's because we're starting to recognize some of those, starting to recognize that burnout and some of those PTSD symptoms. And once we might have called it weak, or we may have joked it off, but whenever you're having these issues, it's a very real thing. It's very serious. Get help. Don't be ashamed of it. Go speak to somebody. Don't be ashamed of it. Some of the warning signs there. Try to adopt a relaxed, philosophical outlook. It's not always good to self-medicate. Breathing exercises. Some of the stuff that you can do is minimize or eliminate your stressors, change partners to avoid a negative or hostile personality, change your work hours, change the work environment, cut back on overtime. I don't know who that's for. Are they trying to talk to management, or are they trying to talk to individual employees? Change your attitude about the stressor. Talk about your feelings with people that you trust. Seek professional counseling if it's needed. Don't obsess over your frustrations. Try to adopt a relaxed philosophical outlook, like we just said. Expand your social support system. Sustain friends and interests outside of emergency services. That's always good too. Quit scheduling it and making it mandatory. Yeah. Sustain friends and interests outside of emergency services. Sometimes that's easier said than done, because once you start getting deep into it, you look around and all the friends that you have are work-related friends, because that's who you trust, because you trust those people with your life a lot of times. And then sometimes your friends that are outside of emergency services just don't understand. They don't understand exactly where you're coming from. They don't understand the stressors that are involved. And when you do start to explain it, some of them don't want to hear it. Some of them, it bothers them. So make sure you give a word of warning before you start talking, and make sure you can trust that person with that information as well. And when all else is needed, and what should be mandatory in a lot of departments, is critical incident stress management. We should see more of that. Developed to address acute stress situations. Theoretically confronts responses to critical incidents and diffuses them. CISM can occur formally as a debrief for those who were at the scene. Trained critical incident stress management professionals facilitate this. It can occur at the ongoing scene, such as right now. I'm sure it's going on during the collapse in Florida. So diffusing sessions are good. And then debriefs, which are debriefs are generally held 24 to 72 hours after an incident. And then if needed, you can schedule individual appointments with somebody or find out you may need to speak to somebody else, as well as they can schedule more sessions for the group. Burnout, we touched on that a little bit. Some of the symptoms of impending burnout. Lack of desire to report to work. How do we prevent burnout? Is you're going to take care of your own health. Learn how to relax. Don't make unreasonable demands. Stay in touch with your feelings. Learn techniques for shedding stress while on duty. Sometimes taking those deep breaths helps. And then debrief after tough calls. Whether debrief can be just talking about it. Also, you need to be able to recognize some of those symptoms, signs and symptoms of stress and PTSD and burnout in others, in your partner. Take care of each other. If your colleague expresses any suicidal ideations, seek help immediately. Don't think you can always handle it yourself. Eating nutritious. Now, I know this is so easy on an ambulance. I know this is so easy, so I don't know why anybody would complain. To eat nutritious food and regular, well-balanced meals, and several small meals a day. Now, a lot of them eat several meals. I don't know if it's several small meals, but most definitely packing your own lunch sometimes, that helps tremendously. Hydrate adequately. Water is best. Avoid sugary drinks. Avoid coffee. I'm kidding. I love coffee, but I supplement it with water. There's water in it. Practice relaxation techniques. Exercise regularly. All good stuff to do. If you don't smoke, don't start. That was one thing whenever I was overseas, they would tell you, they'd be like, if you don't have a bad habit, you might as well find one. So under peer pressure, we always ended up finding a bad habit, whether it be smoking, dipping, chewing, whatever. Know your family's health history and adjust your lifestyle as necessary. That's good to know. Make sure you get plenty of sleep, uninterrupted sleep, regular sleep. Find out what works for you and stick to it. There's a big one. Balancing work, family, and health. Find a balance between work and family. Rotate schedules and time off when possible. Seek help if you are expressing significant stress. So one of the things that I really started to have, or where I really started to do, I'm very busy. I stay busy all the time. But what I do is the very first thing on my schedule every month, the very first thing I put on my schedule before I put anything down is my time off. I put my time off first, and then I schedule around that. Or I try to build my schedule around that. And I'm not saying you do it a month. I'm saying if you can schedule it a year before, just schedule your time off first. Take time for yourself and your family first. So that's good stuff. Mental Health Day. Workplace issues, diversity on the job. Each person is different. Communicate respectfully. Cultural diversity is a resource. Learn how to relate and communicate effectively with coworkers and patients of different cultures. It's always good to know. Knowing your local community, what cultures are more apt to do what, certain patients don't want an opposite sex even speaking to a patient of an opposite sex or what have you. Some patients, they have a different understanding of how healthcare works. Some religions, you're only allowed to go so far into any type of medical treatments. Making sure you know that. Make sure you pay attention to that and follow and abide by them as much as you can. Sexual harassment. It's an unwelcome verbal or physical conduct or overheard conversation. All right. So there are two types of sexual harassment. There's quid pro quo, which is a harasser requests sexual favors in exchange for something else, such as a promotion or something like that. So quid pro quo. And then you have hostile work environment, which can include jokes, touching, leering, requests for a date, talking about body parts, so on and so forth, are some examples. Sexual harassment complaints include complaints of a hostile work environment or a disharmonious work environment. The intent does not matter. The intent does not matter. Only the other person's perception of the perceived instance. Every bit of the behavior is unacceptable. Most places have a zero tolerance policy on it. It's important to develop non-adversarial relationships with your coworkers and report any harassment to your supervisor immediately. Keep notes because they are keeping notes. You should be keeping notes. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you have issues with, if remarks or touching offends you, then say so. Please don't say that or do that to me. Don't just make it known that you don't agree with it. And if you have further issues, you don't feel like your employer's mechanism is resolving it, then you can always go to Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the EEOC if you have issues. And I say this because it happens everywhere, in all services and in all instances. It can happen during your training. It can happen during your work. So make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on around you. Substance abuse, drug and alcohol is an increased risk for accidents, and it brings tension among coworkers. It really does. It can lead to poor treatment decisions. Addicts and alcoholics develop great skills at covering for their behavior. People quote unquote say quote unquote functional, drug user, functional alcoholic. There's no such thing. You're not as functional as you could be at your tip top without it. So find a way, seek help in any way, and find a way to confront a coworker if you're having those type of issues. EAP is fantastic to use, or Employee Assistance Program is what that is. So working with your ambulance companies, then you're always going to be dealing with death and dying. So that's just part of your job. You're going to deal with the stages of death, and you're going to deal with them yourself sometimes. Others are going to deal with them. And there is no real time frame in which you're going to deal with these stages of death. You got denial, which is a refusal to accept diagnosis or care, unrealistic demands for miracles. You got anger and hostility, which is it's going to be a projection of bad news onto the environment, lashing out. They lash out to you. You got bargaining, an attempt to secure a prize for good behavior, a promise to change, a promise I won't do this no more if you just help me make it through this. You got depression. It's an open expression of grief, hopelessness. This can involve suicidal threats or ideations, and can turn into complete withdrawal. And then you have acceptance, which is the simple yes, often peaceful patience. But it's most of the time acceptance is most traumatic for the family, because that person's moved on and sometimes the family has not. The family, the patient themselves are going to go through it. The families are going to go through it. People surrounding go through it, and you can possibly go through it. Working with family members. So always try to be honest and sincere, provide gentle, caring support. Always maintain a professional attitude. Definitely want to acknowledge the fact of the death. If possible and appropriate, let the parents hold a child. Talking about death of a child, sorry. But acknowledging that the death is very important. This should be done in a private place. You'll get different reactions. Don't assume just because they're showing little emotion, they don't care. Shock. It hasn't sunk in. If it's possible, let them hold the child. So if they want to see the child, you should allow them to do so. But your decision in permitting them to do so, to see the child, it may require discretion. So make sure that you're aware of what's going on or what happened, and then also prepare the parents for what they may see. Don't overload the parents with a lot of information. That's when it's very important to use that nonverbal communication, and let the family's actions be your guide on how you carry through. Bad bird patient there. Caring for critically ill and injured patients. Let the patient know who you are, introduce yourself, what you're doing, give that communication. What are your thoughts on working a child? Some people say always work them no matter what. Others say it depends. So my thoughts, I guess that would be my opinion. What you're referring to, Tom, I believe is what we used to call show coding. I know it's a very insensitive term, but we used to call it show coding. And you do it for the family is what they say. I've been on scenes where children have been ran over, and I was told to show code the patient all the way to somewhere, and I've been on other scenes where children have died, or other things have happened with the child, and not work them and just explain to the parents there's nothing I can do. There's absolutely nothing I can do. and explain to them what, what happened, what they're looking at, what's going on, why you can't work that. That communication is key. I am not a proponent for show coding. I think it's important for that grieving process to start. I feel like if you're show coding, then you haven't been properly trained. I understand it. Some people aren't properly trained to handle those emotions. Well, yes, show coding, it gives a false sense of hope. Yes, it does, in a lot of ways. But in a lot of ways too, it's you're just trying to get out of there. You're trying to get out of there. And I'm not in a big agreement to it. I'm one of the ones that, I feel like that grieving process has to start. If you have done everything that you can do, or if you know that there's nothing that you can do and you're confident in that fact, then you should be able to explain why you feel that way, or why that's, why this is happening. So I'm not a fan of the show coding. I've been involved in it both ways. So, I'm not saying that I've never been guilty of it, or I haven't done it to spare it. Most of the time, to spare you as the medic, or to spare your own stuff, or you're trying to make it look good. What you could actually be doing as well as running up a bill in some instances, as well, creating more of a burden. So caring for the critically ill and injured patients, give patients the opportunity to express their fears. Let them talk. All right. Responses must be discreet and diplomatic. Give reassurance when it's appropriate. If a loved one's been killed or critically injured, wait until, if possible, a clergy or emergency department staff can inform the patient. I've sat in many of chapels and waiting rooms with parents and with family members and everything else, and had to sit there and wait, and was asked to respond. I've been sent back into the hospital to get information. You telling me that's tough. And then them asking you questions. Know your stuff. Know your stuff. You can explain it just as well as anybody else if you know your stuff. Respect religious customs and patients' needs. Accommodate the request if they're practical. And then report religious convictions such as opposition to the use of drugs and blood products to personnel responsible for the next level of care. All right, make sure that you report that up, and make sure that you tell the patient that you're going to report that up. Orient the patient. The patient may be confused and unsettled, so use brief, concise statements to orient the patient to his or her surroundings. And then be honest. Decide how much information that your patient can understand and accept, and then be honest without further putting that patient in shock or giving unnecessary information. Explain exactly what you're doing and allow the patient to be a part of the care that's being given as well. And it makes it a lot easier for that patient. Some things like deal with the patients, or deal with possible initial refusal of care. Impress on the patient the seriousness of his or her condition without causing alarm or family alarm or any surrounding alarm. Also, stress for an inability to pay will have no bearing on whether a patient seeks care. It's not your role to tell a patient if he or she's going to die. So you can allow for that hope. Let the patient know that you're doing everything possible. But if there's the slightest chance of hope remaining, transmit that message to the patient. Sometimes we get into that broken record. We're doing everything we can. We're doing everything possible. Well, if you know something they don't, talk about that with discretion. Locate, notify any family members that are around. Assure the patient that you'll take care of notifying the appropriate people if you can do so. Don't lie to them. This is real important for patient care because calm patient. The more stress you're under, the more stress exacerbates injuries or illness. Children need to be cared for just as any adult would be. Always try to get their height, weight, and size for children. In order to keep everybody else calm, you need to remain calm as well. There's some guidelines for uncertain situations. Always refer to your local policies, procedures, SOPs, SOGs, protocols. It's going to help you direct your actions. All right, that was 1 and 2. All right, so let's do some let's do some review stuff. How about that? Maybe. Actually, we'll take a small break. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll do a review. I know you got a couple of chapter quizzes coming up, so we'll do a small review, and then we'll go over some quiz stuff. Thanks. So anyway, most of the questions, what I'm looking for, most of the questions on here are each chapter will be between 10 and 20 questions. You'll have a time frame of 30 minutes right now. Everybody can hear me right now. I think I'm unmuted. I hope so anyway. So it'll be about 30 minutes for the chapter quizzes. Now, as time goes on, what I plan on doing is I'm going to make those time frames smaller. So if there's, for example, if there's 20 questions, as we start to get a little more used to how the questioning goes, as 20 questions will be 20 minutes or something like that, 22 minutes or something short. And all of this is more of to get you in a frame of mind of how to test that stress inoculation, of how to test under a stressful condition, or sometimes I may have a quiz on there that's, not a quiz, but a module test that could be 100 questions long or something like that. And that's going to get you in that is to get you in that frame of mind of how National Registries is going to go. Because that National Registry it'll draw out and it'll kind of help you get used to how that questioning lineup goes, how long you could be in there, and kind of conditioning you for test day. When we try to do some of our stuff, our interaction, when we talk about some of our processes, when we go over our patient assessment, what I'm going to try and do is we're all going to do the camera visual. I'll be able to see everybody on camera. And then we'll go from there and do these assessments. We'll figure out some creative ways to do it, whether it's I put a board up there and with a picture and everybody can draw on it if they can do that, or with their mouse or what have you, point to it. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot. So, but we'll do things like that. But I will try to have a small review or something like that before tests, just to kind of get us in the flow of things. Okay. All right. So there's interventions that we're going to do regardless of the certification that we're doing. One of those interventions is going to be hemorrhage control. Is that going to be something that we're going to do? Is that something that we all can get into? Screen is frozen. Can you still hear me though? Okay. As long as you still hear me. All right. So hemorrhage control is something that no matter what, we're going to be able to do, right? No matter if you're an EMR or a paramedic, hemorrhage control is something you can do. Yes, that is correct. All right, so AMT training follows national EMS education standards as recommended by whom? Can anybody tell me who recommends it? We mentioned them several times. All right, it's going to be the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They're going to be the ones that can, or that recommends the training. So authorization to use an automatic transport ventilator, if you know what that is, when transporting a patient requires which minimum level of EMS provider? Can anybody answer me that? An automatic transport ventilator. Okay, so the minimum level of EMS provider, that's actually going to be a EMT. Not a this is an automatic transport ventilator, not a ventilator that you have to set PEEP on and everything else. It's usually hand jammed in there or set to a continuous. It's a piece of equipment. So an EMT can actually set that up, or depending on your jurisdiction. But for purposes of this book, an EMT can actually do that. So identifying patients who are critically ill or injured, would you say that's a responsibility of an AEMT? Absolutely. All right, so here's a good one. Who regulates the standards under which AEMTs provide emergency care? Who regulates? There you go. The state EMS office. Awesome. If you've been convicted of a felony, can you be denied certification? Does that stop people from putting in? It does not. All right, so let's say true or false. CISM, or critical incident stress management. It's designed to confront the responses to critical incidents and diffuse them. True or false? True. Awesome. That is correct. All right. If I have this certain type of body armor, would provide protection of a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson. Is it going to be 1A, 2A, 3A? Two A is going to be correct. 2A. Is increased appetite a typical warning sign of stress? Yes, I can repeat that question. Sorry. The question was, yeah, that's it. What body armor would stop a 40 Smith & Wesson? And the answer would be 2A. So as far as the typical warning sign of stress, Increased appetite would not be a typical warning sign of stress. Decreased appetite, however, would be. It's kind of odd because I know a lot of people stress eat, but we're going by the book. Remember that. Do the same thing, stress eating. If stress were loss of appetite, I'd be a rail. All right, so you get stuck by a needle during a treatment of a critically ill patient. What should you do? That's right. Report it to a supervisor as soon as possible. All right, so somebody with tuberculosis, how would you mask them up? How would you perform proper infectious disease control? For yourself and the patient. Okay. 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 All right. So for yourself, you would put a HEPA respirator on, and then for the patient, you put a non-rebreather mask on the patient. Let's say this patient's got a shortness of breath and history of tuberculosis. So shortness of breath is why you put the NRB on. Right. So which of the following foods provides the safest, most reliable source for long-term energy production? Is it going to be A, fish, B, pasta, C, cheese, D, chicken? Sorry, I lost my camera for a minute. Pasta is correct. Pasta is correct. All right. So a patient starts yelling at you saying, why are you yelling to me? Or why are you yelling to me? Why are you lying to me? What stage of the grieving process would that be typical of? Oh, is that not why? Denial would be, this isn't happening to me, right? So anger, why are you yelling to me? Screaming at you, why are you yelling at me? or crap. Why are you lying to me? So anger would be it. Anger would be it. So they're showing aggression. It's going to be anger. Denial would be, this is not happening to me. This doesn't happen. They're denying the fact of what's going on. Whereas anger would be they're yelling at you. They're mad at something. They're, so on and so forth. Bargaining would be, I promise I won't do this if you only let me live. I promise I'll stop drinking if you save me. So on and so forth. All right, so if you use a waterless hand washing substitute in the field, it's important to do what? If you use a waterless hand washing substance, what should you do soon after? Wash your hands. That's right. Wash your hands appropriately. Okay. So I just wanted to go over a few of these. A little bit of a review. Alrighty. All right, so the class code, we have reached the end of it. Does anybody have any questions or anything of me? Definitely ask away if you want to know anything. All right. As I said before, just if you have any questions, you can email me or contact me on Discord. Give me at a minimum of 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, you can write Rob himself. And then also when you write Rob, just put me on the C. You can CC me, or you can put me on the 2 line as well. Just make sure you put me on there as well. How will we get to the quizzes? So if you log on to your Navigate and you get all the way through there, you can go to that chapter 1 and you look through there, and the quiz should be there, as well as if you go to the right. Yep. If you go to the right, it's on the calendar also. But if you go to the right, you'll see quizzes on there, and you can hit that on a laundry list of things, and you can go in there and you can click the one. It's going to be open until I think I put on it. It's going to be open until the 7th or the 8th. The 8th. That's right. The 8th. So it'll be open until the 8th. And then after that, we'll take all of it from there. Don't freak out if you don't do well or anything like that. We will work through this process, and it'll get better. Things will get better as we go. Okay. So if you're one of those people that can't stand not to have a straight A, welcome to the wonderful world of ALS education. No, just 1 and 2. Just 1 and 2. So yeah, it says chapter tests and modules, but you're just going to take chapter test 1 and 2. Also, they're in those modules that you're looking at. When you pick the chapter, there'll be a discussion question in there, or a discussion in there. If you could please get on there and do the discussion as well before the 8th, that would be fantastic. Give us something to talk about next class. Other than that, our next class is the 7th, right? What's today? Yep. Is that right? I'm not too totally off, am I? Yep. Next class will be the 7th. Fantastic. So I'll look forward to seeing all of your shining faces then. I'm not going to forget. 1221. 1221 is the code. So all you're going to do is the discussion, the chapter test, read over the next chapter. The module test won't be open until later on, until we cover, I think it's 9 chapters. So the module test is an entire section. Oh yeah, that's right. Module test ain't that bad, Ty. Come on. You will be studious in your training and education. You will learn. But yes, code is going to be 1221. All right. If you read the email that I sent out to you today, it's got the directions with it. All right. All right, so it says the AMT course syllable. It says, I've also attached to this email. On the last page of your syllabus, you'll find a form that you need to print, sign, and return to instructors. The form must be submitted. So reading that one. Also, all Zoom classes are recorded, shown on the camera, letter, date, and time will be uploaded, watched. Trying to see where I put that at. Put that attendance format. Oh, let me find the attendance form. That I do not know. I'll be able to see your attendance too, but on the first one, I'll let you know if it went through or not. I'll definitely let you know. Yep. So you need to go to the ARES website. That's where it's at. Yep. And do the attendance form. Yep. I was trying to find the website itself, but yes, that's where it's at. It's relatively easy to get to. But other than that, if anybody's got any questions outside of this, please let me know, and I will get to you as soon as I can. If I don't hear from you, then I'll see you on the 7th at 1800 or 6 o'clock. I appreciate y'all very much, and thank you.